Thank you, Tuku Morgan, for that stirring address. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Sir Mark Solomon, who's a well-known Māori leader and previous Māori tribal chairman. Sir Mark was chairman of the Tribal Council of Ngāi Tahu for approximately 18 years, continuing on till December 2016. He was named a visionary leader in 2012 in the Deloitte Top 200 Awards, but more particularly also over the period when he was chairman of Ngāi Tahu. At the outset, Ngāi Tahu settled its Treaty of Waitangi claim with the Crown for $170 million. By the end of Sir Mark's stewardship as chairman, those commercial assets had appreciated and grown to an estimated $809 million. He's a major wheel in Māori politics and in Māori's economic development. Thank you, Sir Mark.
Ngā iwa te motu a tēnā koutou. Ngā mihi ki kingi tūhei te arawa ko te ata whai rātou o na tamariki mokopuna, tēnā koe, tēnā kōrua, tēnā koutou. Ngā manuhiri tuarangi o te whenua ngā tāwahi, ka nui te mihi aroha ki a koutou mo te hara mai ki konei, he runga i tēnei kaupapa whakahirehira, the kaupapa of the Silk Road. As was said earlier, on the 26th of September 1998, I was elected as the kaiwhakahaere, the chairman of Turunanga o Ngāi Tahu, Ngāi Tahu being one of the 9 tribes that occupies the South Island of New Zealand. We had made a decision that we would not be just investing our money on stocks and bonds, that we were to be actively involved in business, hands-on business. And the Ngāi Tahu economy over the last 20 years is based on, we are now the 6th largest fishing company in New Zealand. We are probably the biggest property developer in the South Island. We own around 6,500 hectares of dairy farms. We are in the process of converting 9,500 hectares to meat production. In conjunction with Tainui, we're the biggest bus operator in the country. Combined, we own something like 1,760 buses. We reached our first billion net in 2014, and we've finished this financial year at 1.3, just under 1.4 billion net. Now, when I came on into the tribal arena, the Māori economy was sort of looked down upon in this nation. In fact, the stats were that in 2001, the Māori contribution to the economy was around 9.5 billion. And according to our government, we'd had a big spurt of growth, and by 2005, the Māori economy was equivalent to around 16.5 billion. I spent the 3 years after that report came out going across this nation saying that the government's report on the Māori contribution to the economy was rubbish. That at a bare minimum, the Māori contribution was double what our government was saying. In 2009, Minister Dr. Peter Sharples called me on my comments and invited me to sit on a ministerial task force whose role was to prove what the Māori contribution to the economy was. And we were able to show, simply by using organisations that identified as Māori, that in 2009, the Māori contribution was just under 38 billion. And as Tuku has said just before, the indications are now that that economy has reached just under 50 billion, around 6% return. It's not enough. For us, a minimum for me, is that we need to be contributing 15% of the economy of this nation, and we will get there, and we will be there within 20 years at contributing 15%. My first role on behalf of our tribe was to sit in an office in Wellington and sign off on our settlement documents. And the settlements are important, but I wish to emphasise the settlements are not a compensation for what iwi have lost. In the Ngāi Tahu settlement, our government's treasury was asked a question by the Waitangi Tribunal. If Ngāi Tahu had been allocated all of its land reserves as guaranteed under their land sales to the settler government, what would the 1988 value be? Treasury reported back to our Waitangi Tribunal that in their view, the Ngāi Tahu financial loss based on 1988 values was between $12 and $15 billion. Our advisors, using the same documentation as Treasury, stood and argued, we disagree with Treasury, the figure is between 18 and 20 billion. Our settlement offer was $170 million. There is no discussion on the quantum, it is take it and leave it. As a signatory to that settlement, and I will never say in any forum that I believe that the Ngāi Tahu settlement was fair and just. Even if I take the lowest figure given by Treasury, that we'd lost $12 billion worth of assets, to be offered $170 million as a full, fair, final and just settlement just simply does not make the grade. But in saying that, I, along with 93.6% of Ngāi Tahu, voted in favour of accepting our settlement. And we took a pragmatist view. If we could not build a future based on a capital injection, a financial future based on a capital injection of $170 million, then it wouldn't matter what we got. So cut your losses and go forward and see what you can do. And as I say, we've just finished this financial year at just under $1.4 billion net, only carrying 10% debt. But as I embarked upon my journey with Ngāi Tahu, it became pretty obvious to me that within the Māori world, we were all trying to do the same thing. We were all trying to build a capital base. We were all trying to look after the social and cultural issues as they affect our people. We were all trying to look after the natural environment within our respective areas. But all of us were doing it in isolation of each other. So using a bit of cheek, I rang the Māori Queen's office in 2005 and asked for an appointment. And I went to see Dame Tiata and I said to her, it seemed to me that we were all doing the same, but what I couldn't understand, if we were all trying to achieve the same result, why were we all doing it in isolation of each other? And I put a dream to her that I'd like to do a geographic sweep across our nation and invite, say, 30 chairmen of iwi to come and talk about a collaborative approach. All of Tainui Waka turned up at that meeting. In fact, I put out 30 invitations, and in a typical Māori way, 36 tribes turned up. But we came to an agreement in November 2005 that we would meet as a collective 4 times a year. The first meetings were always to be the 4th and 5th of February at Waitangi. And in that meeting, we would invite the standing government of the day and put to them, these are the issues that we wish to enter into discussions with you around our economy, our nation. We have one in May, one in August, always hosted by Tainui Wakato, and one in December. I don't know whether it's correct, but a number of political commentators in this nation now state that the Māori, the Iwi Chairs Forum, is one of the most powerful lobby groups in this country. There's a talk out there about the awakening economic giant called Māori. I would argue that the awakening giant is still at the crawling stage, but we're starting to get up onto our legs so that we can run. We will become one of the driving forces of this nation economically. As Tuku has pointed out, our demographics are massively changing in this country, and by 2050, the bulk of the tax-paying workforce of this nation is Māori, Pacific Island and Asian. And we need to be ready for this. I say that because too many of ours, our rangatahi, our boys mainly, still leave the compulsory education system with no qualifications. That is no longer acceptable. It's not just not acceptable for Māori or Pacifica, It's not acceptable for this nation, because if this nation does not lift its game and go to a new level in education, we face a very real future of potentially becoming a third world nation. So we need to be working together. When it comes to what is here today, I just want to finish with, we welcome the connections. We welcome the relationships. We look forward to doing business together. We look forward to a win-win together. Like tuku, I invite you all in this room to have discussions with iwi Māori, because we are here, we are never leaving this nation. This is our nation with the rest of New Zealand. Kia ora tātou.
Tūtira mai ngā iwi, tātou tātou e. Tūtira mai ngā iwi, tātou tātou e. Whai a te maramatanga, me te aroha e ngā iwi. Kia tapatai, kia kotaira, tātou tātou e. Tātou, tātou, e. Ia wei!